Many are doubting the ability of Tony Abbott, but we started well before the G20. This is our cartoon of all of the bicycle riding lemmings following him over the fiscal cliff. We believed then and now that it is policy which is the problem. But the man, all of his lemmings, and both major parties have the same policy. This has been the policy of both major parties from 1970. When, with Blackjack McEwen trying to warn of the dangers of moving away from protectionism. This policy was confirmed in 1975 at the Lima Declaration and was meant to be a trial for 25 years. The policy was to reduce tariffs. The policy was not reviewed and the lemming-like behaviour seems to be getting stronger. It is now better known as universal free trade. We showed this in another film clip. Now, if in 1970 we had been realistic and did not have delusions of grandeur, we would have been content to describe Australia with its low population and living on the driest continent on earth as a developing country. We could have followed this up here. We could have followed this path in the manner as defined by John McEwen in a few minutes. Now, we could have been described as one of the brickers. Instead of the bricks, there could be BRIC Australia, South Africa, instead of one of the once developed countries on their path to oblivion. Joe Hockey led the G20 free trade agreements where all the leaders signed documents that promised to increase GDP for all developed countries by an additional 2% prior to the next meeting. Something like this. So much so for 20 signatures. They all signed to say, yes, we're going to increase it, we're away from the trend. A few months later, Christine Lagarde, the leader of the IMF, forecasted a drop in GDP for 2015, which means that we just keep on going down here unless we do something drastic. We had different types of politicians in those days. This is back in 1970. John McEwen was the leader of the Country Party. John Gorton was leader of the Liberals. They worked together at a completely different policy. They established the Australian Industry Development Corporation, AIDC, which instigated value-adding industries. It was calculated that the value difference in exporting bauxite versus processed aluminium in 1970 was exporting 1 million tonnes of bauxite, the raw material earned $5 million. Processed one step into alumina earned $27 million. Processed again into aluminium earned $125 million. And processed finally into aluminium products earned $600 million. Universal free trade policies of both major parties have basically killed this initiative. John McEwen was such a strong advocate of these wealth-building policies that they were known as McEwenism. Now we have Abbottism. It calls for the privatisation of public utilities as the only way to escape from debt. In our history classes, we used to learn how Australia rode on the sheep's back. And this was really wonderful for us. Australia grew at a fast rate and was recognised all over the world. But in time, that emphasis was likely to change. Even well before the time of John McEwen, we had discovered how much iron and how much good quality coking coal we had, and they started to make iron up in Lithgow. It was away from the coast, and so then they moved to Newcastle, and the first blast furnace, and this is one of them, was produced in Newcastle. But following that, we built strongly from having blast furnaces in Newcastle, Port Kembla, Whyalla and Kwinana in Western Australia. John McEwen and John Gorton, they were very happy that we continue with this. And during the Second World War, our steel industry was wonderful for us because it meant that we could be self-sufficient in steel and the things you do to wage war, just as we were self-sufficient in everything, agriculture and manufacturing, whatever. These were really the golden days. Then in 1970, and this is where we then find that we were doing extremely well, but we believe, if we had have not pretended we were a developed country, and we could be now on the very same path that we were working towards at that time. Now we have apatism, and what do we have to look forward to?